What's your name, by the way? Sorry.
So my name, Flash, you can call me.
Flash.
Yeah.
What, are you religious at all? Or
Agnostic.
Agnostic.
But I like philosophy stuff. So this is,
okay, it's interesting. You studied philosophy.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay. The answers for our existence, the existence of the universe, the existence of consciousness, the existence of morality, you can't explain it without the necessary existence.
But you say existence won't explain consciousness. It's just an assumption.
I think it does. They say, oh, do a gratitude list. Write down what you're grateful for. Who are you grateful to, man? Who?
I'm grateful to a lot of people.
No, but who are you grateful to for your eyes? The problem is, Allah says that He's unlike His creation.
Sure.
So when we start to then define the mind of God, or what it must be like, or what it must be, or whether we can even say mind, right? I think we fall into problems then.
So then the argument's not deductive, because you're going to make the assumption that the mind of God is exempt from cause and effect, in which case cause and effect you're saying is just a feature of material things or things that exist in the universe, not God. But it's a special pleading. So
my argument is that it is an argument looking at how material things exist in our reality, okay, and then arguing whether that is a possibility with the absence of God, i.e. just a material existence.
Sure.
And I would say, rather than define God, I would say that if that reality seems to not work and it's unreasonable, then by default the God reality makes more sense.
But then you could just take that same... So your argument, basically, if I understand you correctly, is that it only makes sense if God happens to have this feature which allows it to circumvent cause and effect in order to make a free choice, which then He uses to make the universe at a certain point. Is that...
So, no, again, look, this is what I would say. The nature of God, or the mind of God, or how the mind of God works... For me, I don't like to delve into those issues.
Let's leave that aside.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to now understand something that's supernatural.
Sure.
It's outside of philosophy, outside of science.
I agree.
But what I'm saying to you is that you would accept, for, like me, that there are these two alternatives, right?
Which are the two?
A material existence of everything, or an immaterial one.
Sure. I mean, I think the distinction doesn't make sense, but sure.
But would you... why does it not make sense?
It's subjective. What you call material, immaterial. Like you just whatever exists. Whatever you want to call it, immaterial or material.
No, so what I mean is supernatural or material.
It's still subjective. Like it doesn't. You can't really objectively delineate between supernatural and natural. It's just a definition we use to describe.
So natural would be something, by definition, not supernatural, not outside of the outside of nature or the processes of nature. Of how we understand matter and energy and all of these things, and so there's a supernatural be outside of that. So
we don't have a thing. We don't have a thing that meets that definition of supernatural.
But I don't think you need to define it.
No, what I mean is, if you're defining natural as everything that we know materially exists, energy, matter, blah, blah, and you're saying there's some other thing besides that.
Yes, something outside of that.
Yeah, it presumes that there's. That whatever that thing is, it would just be an
What's your name, by the way? Sorry.
So my name, Flash, you can call me.
Flash. What, are you religious at all? Or
Agnostic.
Agnostic.
But I like philosophy stuff. So this is
it's interesting. You studied philosophy.
Yeah, a long time ago. So that's why I like the argument here. It's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's just grant that there's a immaterial and material, whatever that means, right? My argument was just that.
Add one point.
Yeah.
Sure. Sorry, I don't want to disturb the conversation.
No.
So even the understanding of how this wording used, there is a separation between natural and supernatural. What are the scientists' understanding of the supernatural? They say it's a violation of the natural law. But what we say is an exception in the nature.
But what I would say is it adds to the natural law.
So that distinguished, brother eloquently mentioned it. I just want to stress the point.
Okay.
Now I'll give you back.
No, I agree. What I'm trying to say is that...
this is the dominant understanding in the philosophy of science. They categorize it.
Yeah, they categorize it, but what I would say
why did they categorize it? You know why?
Well, I think it's a mistake, but...
No, you can't say mistake. In order to say something mistake, you need to have the correct answer. I can't just say, brother, you're wrong, without having a correct answer.
So is there general consensus in the philosophy of science?
Yes. So why the scientists say Jesus Christ miracle? Do they see it as a miracle? No, they don't see. They don't see. They say something as a myth.
They say it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
But they say it would be a violation of
natural law. This is how they term it. So the terming is very important. Why? because we can categorize any item. If you don't categorize item, you can mix together.
I understand it's
and that's
useful.
why, brother,
I agree that you
eloquently
can.
mentioned.
That's what I meant when I said it's subjective, the differentiation. Because the natural laws keep changing, blah, blah, blah. So maybe one day we discover...
No, there are certain things doesn't exist in the reality all the time. When we see the natural process of born human being, we always accustomed with mother and the father and the baby comes. But when someone come from without father, you can't call self this is natural. This is where we distinguish between the...
I don't want to get bogged down in the definition.
No, it's important because we're talking about the creation. I'll tell you why it's very important. There are few possibilities creator must have. And there are three main criteria a attribute must have. The creator have the will, ability, and the knowledge. Without these things, any conscious agent who brings everything into existence, that bring existence have to have these three things. Even if you make anything, you must have these three things. So when we look at, let's say you make a cake. Let's say you make a cake. We saw a prepared cake. Do you believe that cake, the one who made it, he must have the knowledge of making the cake? It's essential. We don't need a revelational knowledge.
There's a lot of things on
No, I'm narrowing down to three things. Do you say these three things must have to have essentially? Okay.
If you say creator, you're implying an agent.
I'm using a cake example.
I know, but you're implying, when you say creator, you're implying an agent has a brain that can make a choice.
Let's forget about...
Something could cause another thing, but not be a conscious.
We wouldn't sort of put it in that way, as a brain or... So when we say
mind, whatever.
A mind,
sure,
because then it's not a physical thing. It's
sure.
more of
I meant the same.
I understand. I'm not just... Sorry, I'm not trying to be
like, for example,
pedantic.
For example, if I say this bottle, can this bottle make a fantastic bowl of biryani? Now that bottle cannot make a biryani.
I wish it could.
It could, Then we can have
a business like that.
I mean, you're making my mouth water.
Now we need to find out why this bottle cannot make biryani. We need to, and we know that this bottle cannot make it. We are reasonable, right? Let's not make it unreasonable. We know that the bottle is not conscious about what it's going to make. So the conscious is missing, which is mean will is missing. The bottle doesn't have the knowledge to make the biryani. And the bottle does not have the ability to make biryani. So these are essential criteria for any creation.
Qualities.
Exactly. So I'm going to pass it to brother.
No, I think that's a good point. But brother, what I would say is that, look, these are very interesting discussions. But I think that even if we look at the universe, ourselves, our lives, holistically, the best explanation is a creator. So one of the things I would say to you is, can a property that doesn't possess a quality, can it give rise to that quality?
It's logically possible.
Is it possible?
It's possible.
Can you give me an example?
Water, H2O produces wetness in water, but neither hydrogen nor oxygen has the property of wetness.
Well, the combination of those things.
Yeah, so that means you're saying if you combine things in a certain way, it can produce something which the parts lack. Right? So
now H2O does have the properties to give rise to water.
If you mix in a certain way.
Of course. But can anything that doesn't have the properties
as a single
give rise to something? No, even if you mix things together.
So it depends on... So, I mean, in a sense, you're going to go in a circle because then if you say a rock lacks the property of creating, like, biryani, for example, right? Then it's true by definition if you describe the properties of the rock as such. But there could be something which... So, yes, in a sense, I agree. It neither has can't have the potential, nor can it have... Sorry, it can't have the property, nor can it have... It must not have the potential either to create the thing.
Okay. So if it doesn't have the potential... or doesn't have the properties, then it can't give rise to that thing. Agreed?
Yeah, agreed.
So then you have to explain to me consciousness.
Absolutely.
Explain to consciousness.
Where did it come from?
But now we're talking about the brain. Let's assume my position. I'm a materialist, so I'll take the brain produces consciousness.
Now you made an assumption there.
No, I agree it's assumption. But that's my thesis I'm starting with. I won't be able to explain how consciousness comes about.
That's why it's called a hard problem.
Exactly. Make a prize for me if I can.
Absolutely.
But
maybe this conversation will become more viral than any other. Yeah, absolutely.
But however, as we talked about H2O, when you mix hydrogen and oxygen together, you get wetness, right? The brain is not a single unit; it's a combination of things, and you can't tell me that you know for sure that the brain doesn't have the properties to create consciousness, because it's a composite. It's not made of just flesh. It's a combination of chemicals, neurotransmitters, whatever goes inside the brain, right?
Look, the reason why I brought that up is because, I mean, I'm not saying Huberman knows everything, and we have to listen to him. I'm not saying he's the standard. He's a neuroscientist.
I'm not familiar too much.
Okay. So he himself said he believes in a creator because of the very problem of consciousness.
It doesn't follow.
Look, for him it does. Now, maybe for you it doesn't.
Yeah.
You understand my point?
Yeah, I guess.
Look, also, Flash, we've got to realize something, Look, we can deny anything.
No. I'm saying. I also think I'm not coming off as pedantic, right?
But what I'm saying is that we can deny anything. That's the reality.
Yes.
No matter how profound.
Yes.
The issue is, though, is it reasonable to deny it? Or is it reasonable to accept a particular notion? And I would say that the philosophical arguments for the beginning of the universe, the necessities of certain properties that are necessary for the necessary existence, are all very interesting. But I'm not saying they're undeniable in a sense that a person won't deny them, that many people will deny them, with or without evidence, right?
You're saying, we don't want to say it's purely subjective either, right? It's not that if I deny it or you accept it, it's a result there's no way to make it.
I'm saying that when the Quran asks the question, and Allah says, did this universe create itself? A rhetorical question, okay? In that is a very profound, philosophical, deep question that requires contemplation and thinking, and the result of which, I believe, if one is sincere, then they have to arrive at the necessary existence.
You don't think a sincere person come up with the opposite conclusion?
Not if they're sincere. No.
Why? What's that?
I think they'll deny it for emotional reasons, but they won't deny it because it's not they won't deny it because using a probabilistic analysis, it's not the most convincing of the statements. Because as I said to you, you could deny anything. Right. So you could say, Flash, yes, there is a hard problem of consciousness. Yes, there is no explanation for it. Yes, in fact, even the concept of just mind itself or brain itself, there are 40,000 neurons in your heart, right? There are gut bacteria that communicate with your brain in terms of desirability for certain foods.
Sure.
So when we talk about mind now, what are we talking about here? You understand my point? Yeah? So all I'm saying to you is that you could still say, okay, it's all physical and there's nothing beyond that. There are experiments on people who've lost most of their brain or born without most of their brain, yet they still have function.
Sure.
And there is a bewilderment in terms of how this can even happen. And people often mock.
They're compromised.
People often mock out-of-body experiences on the operating theatre. But then they see things in the corridor, but then it turns...
I don't agree with that, but...
Okay, no. But there are documented cases now with surgeons, with doctors, and some of these people are not only knocked out during the procedures, but are blind.
No, I'm familiar with out-of-body experiences.
But are blind.
Sure.
Now there are physical explanations you could come up with.
Or mistakes in the interpretations of what we...
I would say that the evidence is too... and I'm not saying all out-of-body experiences are true.
Sure.
I think most of them are probably hoaxes. But I think there are some very well-documented ones that I think have become undeniable, unless you believe in mass conspiracy theories, right? Now, you could explain that even through quantum entanglement or quantum physics or whatever, right? And you could still somehow attribute a physical understanding to those, even without actual experimentation, repeatable and observable experimentation, right? So we can deny anything. But I'm saying holistically, collectively, the answers for our existence, the existence of the universe, the existence of consciousness, the existence of morality, you can't explain it without the necessary existence.
But you say existence won't explain consciousness. It's just an assumption.
I think it does.
How would it explain it?
It explains consciousness as a property that is given by another conscious being.
We don't. But if we accept the principle of what I said earlier, we take two things and you mix them together, you can get something that's not necessarily present in the initial component parts, right?
No, but it is present. So when we say H2O produces water, hydrogen and oxygen, the two elements mixed together, possess the potential and the qualities necessary. But then
that means for consciousness
to produce water.
Yeah, I agree. But then that would mean you have to have an argument for why the brain doesn't have the potential to create consciousness, right?
No, but then I think the onus is on the one who says that this is a hard problem.
No, I agree.
One that cannot be... One, in fact...
Then we're stalemate, right?
No. Yeah. But one, in fact, they argue, cannot be explained through physical realities. They're now going into quantum territory. Well, yeah, it is physical, but it seems to completely turn on its head everything we understood about the physical.
Sure. But besides what you said, the argument you made was that it has to have the potential to create consciousness, right? But you haven't finished that argument. Like, sure, scientists may say whatever. Maybe someone says the opposite. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
But the argument you have to make for God to be the best explanation is that what would make it something for that explanation?
Can I add one point, brother? I think you mentioned a very beautiful point. I just want to add something. You know that brother mentioned that point, the self-creation part, and then the following part is more important. That part actually, where Allah said, "Balla yuqinun." That means they have no certainty. So whenever we
have no what certainty?
They have no certainty.
No certainty. Yeah. So whenever we speculate,
I'm certain about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. But Allah's referring specifically to: did this universe create itself, or are you the creators of yourselves? Okay, and then Allah gives the answer as to the people who come up with a different conclusion to the obvious one, which is the necessary existence, i.e. Allah, and says that they come to that argument with uncertainty.
I see.
You understand?
Before that, Allah saying, did you make the heavens and the earth? So the question is, before he declare himself a maker, he's already declaring, he's doing the negation into the mind of everyone.
Right, exactly.
To tell you that is anyone declaring who is the owner of the universe and yourself, right? And then Allah didn't just stop it. Allah concluded, He said, Balla yuqinun, meaning when you deny it, He knows your psychological state, because on the philosophical jargon in the mind, we concluded, conjecture.
And you will not have certainty.
So that's the full argument from the Islamic premise.
I understand, but you still haven't given an argument, though.
It is.
To be fair, I kind of get a feeling of
where do you see
a little bit of arrogance here? Not to say you're arrogant, but it sounds like you're starting from like a platitude of I have the truth.
No, brother Flash, look. The point that we're trying to make here, and I think the point that's raised here in the ayah is a very simple one. There are two ways of proving the existence of something. For me, please correct me, because you've studied philosophy. If I'm wrong, I haven't studied philosophy, right?
I'm no expert, so...
Okay, well, I'm certainly not an expert myself, right? So look, the two ways for me, of establishing reality is either you prove the thing itself directly, empiricism, no doubts, experiment, everything, experimental, whatever, right?
You inferred from...
The other is that you exhaust all of the possibilities other than that reality. Obviously, that's a longer approach, but once you do exhaust every other possibility, using a probabilistic, balanced view analysis, you can only then arrive back at this one, which is, well, there has to be a necessary existence, has to have a will, has to have power, has to have these qualities.
So I guess...
Now, let me just finish. And I'm sorry, we have spoken for a while. I'll let you speak now, right? Now, the reason why I think that is a better way of doing it is because trying to establish the provability of the mind of God, the thinking of God, the decision-making of God, those are things that are impossible outside of our capacity unless Allah has already explained those things about Himself. You understand my point? So I don't think it's an arrogant position. It's a position to say that, look, your worldview is not evidence-backed. it's following uncertainty, and you're just making an argument, perhaps simply to deny the obvious, which is that there has to be a necessary existence, which has to have willed things into existence. So please, you do speak now.
No, I agree in principle with what you're saying. It's just that just saying it as a probabilistic model is easy enough, but I guess what I'm trying to get into is what is that probabilistic model? So the argument you gave about necessary existence, that's not a probabilistic argument, right? It's a deductive argument that you gave.
Yes.
And then when I questioned it, you said there's an element where I guess you agree that it's possible. So let me ask you this question: do you agree that it's possible to have a necessary existence that does not have a will? For me, still create the universe.
For me, no.
When I say possible, I mean even logically possible.
Well, if you say mathematically, logically possible, then everything is possible.
So it's not. So you're not giving me a deductive argument. If it was a deductive argument, if you believed in it as a deductive argument, you would say no.
I know, but the point here is this. The reason why let me qualify that statement. Look, it's possible for you to run through a brick wall and make it to the other side without the wall breaking.
Yeah, but it's unlikely to happen.
If your electrons, your atoms,
you could say it's impossible,
are synced with the atoms on the wall.
Unless I'm the real Flash, and then I could go through the wall. But
right. But now, mathematically, that is possible, right?
Sure.
It is possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it is so improbable that no reasonable person will run towards the wall expecting to make it out on the other side. Now, similarly, this universe, you have the laws of the constants, right? Gravity, the strong and weak nuclear forces.
Number E, all this kind of stuff.
All of these things, right? Now, when we add just 3 of these laws out of the main 40 or 50 laws, the probabilistic argument of it happening by itself is less than 1 atom in the entire known universe. Okay.
Right.
Now, mathematically, you can still say it's possible.
Well, actually,
right. But I would say to you, it's so improbable that to arrive at that conclusion, for me, is not a reasonable stance.
But do you agree with me that you can derive the probability of a thing happening objectively? It's not purely an intuitive thing or a subjective thing.
I think it's quite an objective analysis of the probability of the universe being the way it is, right?
In a sense, but I mean, I'm not a scientist, right? But to make that argument, for example, as an example, right? You would need like a control universe to know what the probability. So unless you have 2 universes to compare what other constants would give you, you don't really know what constants will give you what in what universe.
Okay, but the point here now is this.
Probability is a mistake. It's a little misleading to say it's probabilistic argument.
So now what you're doing is you're taking away, effectively, a scientific argument based upon probabilities of mathematical probabilities of things existing the way they exist, and you're actually applying a philosophical argument to that.
Well, I don't agree that the argument is scientifically coherent. I think
I'm not saying it's not coherent. I'm not saying it's not logically coherent. I'm saying, but
no, I mean your position. I don't agree that you gave me a scientific argument. Okay. I think you're misinterpreting how the stats would work.
Well, I can only go by what science says to me.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah.
So, for example, the amoeba, the biogenesis of a biological cell coming from dead matter, amino acids or whatever, for them to assemble themselves. This is what science is telling me. That the Earth would have to be trillions of years old to give it enough time for that to even happen. So my point to you, brother, look, Flash, my point to you is this. So therefore, I would say that is as impossible as you could possibly get.
Sure.
But there are people who are willing to accept that probability as opposed to the other one that is a glaring, obvious one, that this is something else has happened here. Not a mechanical.
I get your point, but I feel like what you're doing, and I want to say it's disingenuous. It's not. I know you mean what you're saying. It's just that you're kind of making a leap from. You're kind of assuming a certain kind of probability. Yes, you're referencing scientists and stuff, but unless we can look into how they do the math, how they come up with the probability, it's pointless to make that argument, right?
No, but look.
I could just quote a scientist who disagrees with the probability. Right? There's no point.
Okay, but the point I'm trying to make to you is this, right? We have to be reasonable, right? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physicist. I'm not a quantum physicist or whatever, right? But if they're telling me that the probabilities of the physical constants are so incredibly minuscule, going to many hundreds of thousands of decimal places. So for one other stat I heard was if you stretch a ruler for the entire known universe and you divide that into 1 inches, so that's 13.8 billion light years across, and you move the force of gravity by 1 inch on that scale, biological life can't happen on Earth in the universe, right?
Sure.
Now, you could say to me, however that happened, it happened with the absence of something putting that measure into where it had to be.
Sure.
You could make that argument. You could go to randomness, or you could go to...
But I wouldn't...
No, what I'm saying to you, right?
Argument,
but to me, it would be glaringly glaringly obvious, just as I go into the Louvre and I see an intricate painting. I'm never going to assume randomness to the brushstrokes that I've created that painting.
I wouldn't either.
Right?
My argument to that would be, we have a universe that came out of the constants. We don't have another universe to see what those constants would have produced.
But it's irrelevant.
No, it's relevant because we're doing the puddle thing, where water fell into a puddle, and the puddle says, "Oh, I was perfectly shaped for the water to come in."
I don't think that follows, to be honest.
It does in a way, because your assumption is... So I agree, let's agree the probabilities you gave me, right? That if you move the gravity to a certain thing, we wouldn't have life as we know it. But no one can know that we wouldn't have other kinds of life, or more life, or less life, if the constants changed, right?
But the point here now...
There's no way to make a probability out of that.
But look, the point here is this. This is just one constant of gravity.
No, but take all of them.
I know, but you've got strong and weak nuclear forces.
No, but what I mean is...
You've got so many other constants, right? What I'm trying to say to you is that, for example, even at the time of the Big Bang, if the force of expansion was less by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of decimal places, it would have either imploded on itself, or it would have exploded at a velocity where there would not have been enough gravitational pull to hold things together. No universes, no matter, no energy. What I'm saying to you is that rather than saying, "Oh, well, we need other universes, we need to compare it to other things,"
that's what you would need.
We need to but we need to think
that's
about.
That's how you would do probability, right?
We need to think about this universe. Why did it arrive at the place that it arrived? How did it arrive at the place? And if we're going to say random,
not random.
Well, it has to be that.
Unguided,
right?
let's say unguided.
Well, that would be random.
No, I mean, random implies like.
But you believe in what did you say in terms of your outlook on cause and effect, determinism? Right?
I don't.
So you're not a libertarian. You're a determinist.
No, I'm not exactly determinist, because I think from if you look at the contingency argument you gave earlier. I kind of wanted to mention earlier, but that argument, God doesn't really solve the argument, because you have to have a reason for why God's thought process is part of the cause and effect chain. But you made the...
No, you don't have to.
No, but you made the assumption that it's outside of that. But if you don't make that assumption, and it's part of the cause and effect, then you will get stuck with a problem with where no matter what, cause and effect always gives you an infinite regress.
But what I would say, look, what I would say to you, Brother Flash, is that these are very interesting discussions, right? But even from a human level, in terms of understanding, the value of your mother, as opposed to the value of a rock, okay, all of these things are understood better. I would say not from a material realm, but from a supernatural realm, from a creator, because otherwise there is no difference in reality on the atoms of a human being to the atoms of a rock. They're just assembled differently. But the fact is, you don't live your life like that.
Yeah, but you have emotions, right? Like you said.
But what I'm saying to you is, even if you were to rationalize that, even if you were to sit down and say to yourself, okay, my emotions are saying that my child is worth more than the rock. But actually, that's wrong. That's an emotion. The rock and the child are worth exactly the same, because they're just a rearrangement of atoms.
But I would say that.
Huh?
I would say that.
You would say that, right? But would you believe that?
I would say that I believe it,
Would you treat...
But would I behave in that way? No, the emotional thing will overcome my rationality.
So what I'm trying to say to you is there is some other component.
No, but it doesn't follow
that
from
drives.
That. It just means I'm irrational, right?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that there is something else within you that intuitively
No, but
That
I agree with you.
That
it's intuitive.
intuitively,
I agree with you.
you know that there is a difference between the rock and your child. Yeah. And no matter how much science you study on atoms and how they are rearranged, that will never leave you.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, you could argue a material reason for that emotion.
Right.
I would say to you that intuitively a person knows that a flower or a rock or a child intuitively are different. And I would say that it's not just based upon because it's emotional. There's something there's something inside of you.
But intuition is kind of...
Well, I think there's something much deeper in your consciousness, in your psyche.
No, it's a powerful emotion, and that's why I think the feeling you're explaining to me is you feel very powerfully that your child and a rock are not the same thing. But on a... If you make the argument for it, it's not really... There isn't really an argument for it.
And if you look at... Another thing I would say to look at...
I think that, again, we are moving to hard problem of
consciousness. Yeah. Look, another thing that I'd look at, right? The human state.
Yeah.
When is it content and happy?
Yeah, we're not talking about...
No. I'm saying these are lessons for us to learn, right?
Yeah.
Is it happier in a completely material, atheistic realm?
No, I agree with you with this. I agree with you. No, spirituality is important for humans.
Spirituality, right? Unless, and this is the beautiful thing about the Quran, Allah says, indeed, hearts, the souls, find tranquility in the remembrance of Allah. When you do shukr, when you are grateful, Allah gives you a tranquility and a peace. And so today when we learn about human beings, they say, oh, do a gratitude list. Write down what you're grateful for. Who are you grateful to, man? Who?
I'm grateful to a lot of people.
No, but who are you grateful to for your eyes? Do you not think about the blessing of your eyes? You understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Now, what Allah does, what Islam does, is it redirects that.
But we're moving away from truth to psychological well-being.
Because that's what I said to you. You have to look at these things holistically. Because you know what might work for you may not work for this brother. What might work for him might not work for him. What might not work for him might not work for me. We're all different. But I think we should not be bogged down on philosophical arguments. I don't think we should be bogged down on scientific arguments. I think we should look at our very selves, our beings, holistically. Why is it that a spiritual connection, despite me being very objective in my reasoning, and very logical and very scientific, why is it that I have to have that spiritual connection? Why is it that my well-being, my mind,
these are great psychological topics.
I understand, but when we
can research these things, right?
Look, but when we reflect on these things, we realize that actually, what makes sense is the necessary existence, the one that created us, and that has created us in the very ways that we are now unraveling, and that have already been listed and mentioned to us in the Quran.
I got you.
I've spoken for a long time. Please go ahead now.
No, I think we can stop it here. I enjoyed the discussion, but I'm here for one day and I'm out of the country.
Where are you living?
I'm from Canada.
Oh, you're from Canada.
Yeah. So I just wanted to check it out.
So were you ever religious? Do you ever believe in a creator? Is this something that you've grown out of, or is it something you've always doubted?
I used to. I actually, on some days I do believe, some days I don't believe.
Okay.
But there's a disconnect between that and on religion.
Have you had a chance? Have you read the Quran at all?
I spent a lot of time researching Islam, and other religions.
What are your feelings about Islam, about the Quran, for example? Because it speaks directly to you, right?
I mean, my feelings. I mean, it's okay, but it's nothing. Like it doesn't address the overall, I guess, concerns that I think about it.
What do you feel that it doesn't address?
I don't have a particular concern. It's just I follow whatever the evidence leads, right? The evidence right now doesn't lead me to the conclusion that it's fed you. Like your probabilistic framework is different from my probabilistic framework, right? Yeah. Like things like consciousness, intelligent design argument you gave me, these kind of things. As someone who studied it, like I'm a little rusty right now, but I've studied it in the past quite a bit. And the arguments, none of them really work for me. They don't really get me anywhere. So I'm kind of stuck in the stalemate kind of position, which I think we're at right now as well.
So are you looking for, when you say evidence, are you looking for what sort of evidence would convince you?
Anything. It doesn't matter. Whatever. Like what would convince me that the tree is there? I see the tree. What would convince me that you're who you are? Well, your ID would convince me. Whatever matches the.
So when you, so what I'm saying is that when you do see the universe, you don't feel that it requires an explanation or it requires a cause, or
it requires a cause.
Do you accept that an infinite regress is not something that's a reasonable conclusion to arrive at? So therefore there has to be a necessary existence.
Yes.
And the necessary existence has to have immense power.
Has to have the potential to make everything into
and the
existence.
energy, the power to be able to create the universe. And since we do see very precise laws in our universe, that it has to have a will to have done that these things can't.
I don't agree with that part. But.
So you don't agree with that part. So you believe that this necessary existence could give rise to a universe.
Well, I would say, most likely, my current position would be that the universe itself is the necessary existence.
Right.
But in a different form, and it just.
But then you'll be arguing that it's not contingent.
That it's not contingent.
So it's not.
Yeah, it's not the universe as we see it.
Right.
Some form of the universe was always there.
Right.
Yeah, it's somehow the same way that God somehow was always there.
So that would be just a belief, right?
No, I think it follows from the same argument that you just.
No,
made. If I remove will out of the argument, we're stuck with the universe.
No, but what I'm saying to you is that, fine, my belief is, based upon what I see, that the only reasonable conclusion I can arrive at is a necessary existence that has a will, consciousness, that gives rise to
I just don't agree with all the properties.
I understand, right? But your belief would then be, and it's not scientific, we accept that.
It's a philosophical argument.
It's a philosophical argument. It's not a deductive argument.
No, it's not. I mean, I don't know. It's not developed enough to classify somewhere.
It's not deductive. So it doesn't lead to certainty. It's an opinion.
Well, I mean, the part that I think is a deductive argument is when you get necessary existence. That part I think you can get a deductive argument to show necessary because of the infinite regress.
I agree.
Blah, blah, blah.
I agree. But the fact that it doesn't have a will.
Yeah, that part I don't have.
Doesn't have intelligence. Doesn't have a mind. Okay, so you would accept that would just be that's not a scientific necessarily conclusion or belief.
I mean, but I'm not saying it could have it. So I'm not saying it does or doesn't.
I understand. So my question really to you would be, why would you opt for that rather than a conscious being giving rise to consciousness, giving rise to the necessary need for the human being to have that spiritual connection? Would that not be a better answer? That's what I'm asking you.
The existence of the necessary being having a will would be a better explanation for
a will, a consciousness.
Would be a better explanation
for us. For how we would live, our morality, for example, or for example, the value of things, the rock and the child. Would it not be a better explanation, I'm saying, for these things?
No, because we have there are material explanations for all those things.
No, they're not.
But they're just like for morality, for example, right?
Yes.
I'm a moral nihilist, so I don't think there's such thing as morality. It's a social construction. We have some genetic components that inform our intuitions of morality. Society has pressures, blah, blah, blah. And then from that you get morality. And then it has some function.
So you don't feel that... So, and I'm sorry to be crude, but...
I was going to say, don't ask a super controversial question if you're on camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that, let's say...
But the answer would probably...
Some sort of, let's say, incest or something like that.
Yeah, I don't have any particular moral
objections to that.
No, nothing, I will have so let me qualify that. I would have my own personal preferences emotionally, so I wouldn't...
you wouldn't want people to indulge in that?
Because of some self-interested reasons or some empathy, whatever reasons I can have, but they're not...
But morally, you would have no... if somebody chose to do that...
Yeah, I wouldn't make a moral argument to that.
You wouldn't say it was wrong?
Exactly, yes.
So, what if a child and an adult is involved? A 3-year-old.
I would call the police because I have empathy for the child.
Yeah.
And I would call the police to...
What if the child was unconscious and they've never remembered a thing in the future?
I would still call the police. I would still call the police just because I have some emotional reactions to that.
But morally, would you say that was wrong?
No.
So I'm saying, you see, from that, this is what I'm trying to explain.
My position is consistent, I believe, right?
Yeah. I'm not denying that your position is not consistent.
And it doesn't require...
I understand. Your position is very honest and very consistent. What I'm trying to say to you, though, is I would say intrinsically a person would arrive at a conclusion that is very wrong.
No, I know. And I have that same
very
feeling.
Unjust.
We both have the same feeling, I hope, right?
A disgusting thing, of course, right? But my point to you is the qualification of having that feeling, I think in itself gives rise to the very first explanation that God has instilled that within you is a more reasonable conclusion.
Why is it more reasonable?
Because I think scientifically it's very difficult through just the mixing of atoms to arrive at that conclusion.
This particular topic, I mean, psychology of morality, right? There's tons of research on why these moral intuitions develop. And there's a lot of guys who have talked about this.
I understand, but those are based upon assumptions, right?
No, you can. Assumptions, we all disagree with assumptions.
Yes.
But if you give some assumptions, which even in your position will have some assumptions, then it will still follow from, let's just say there's a secular model, right? And whatever, the evolution, blah, blah, blah. From those models, you could derive explanations.
Yeah.
Now, you can attack the assumptions, but that's like a different kind of work.
But even if you arrived at evolutionary drives to find something, abhorrent, you still could not make a moral argument.
But I don't make a moral argument.
I understand. So you couldn't actually say somebody else was wrong then.
But I wouldn't.
And you wouldn't be able to enforce laws.
I could enforce laws because I can since that it's a double-edged sword, right? Since I don't tell a person that their thing is morally wrong, I also don't think that if I forced them to not do that, it's morally wrong either. So I could just, it doesn't, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So if they had more force than you, they could effectively legitimize an evil act.
It's not illegitimate, it's just the reality. If someone's doing something and I can physically stop them, I could just stop them.
I understand, but if you were not capable of doing that, you wouldn't be able to say they were wrong then.
I wouldn't say they're wrong, I would call someone who could stop it.
Yeah, I know, but if you don't have that power...
At no point in the conversation would I say you're doing something morally wrong.
So I would say that the theist concept of that is stronger. One last thing I'd like to leave you on, actually, to be honest, and is that for me, all of these conversations are interesting, right? But for me, the Quran has a challenge of the inimitability of the book itself.
But you're going to open if you're going to...
I understand. I'm just saying, have you looked at that challenge at all?
There was a poster here.
There is a poster there.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance?
I did look into it.
So if you look at Sapiens Institute, I think it's a 75-minute read.
Sapiens
Institute. Brother Hamza Zorsis, actually the wording of the poster.
Oh, that's the one.
I've taken it from Brother Hamza Zorsis' video. Okay. So if you get a chance, watch that video, and it's a 75-minute read as to why the inimitability challenge is actually what it is, i.e., you cannot equal it, better it, bring something like it. If after you studied that challenge and you found that there were no human explanations for why the Quran was the way it was...
If you can convince me that the Quran is a miracle, then by all means, that would be evidence.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So why don't you look at that? And then maybe, do you have our details at all, EFDawah?
No, but...
We'll give you our details.
Okay.
You can come on one of our live streams.
Okay.
You don't have to show your face, you can if you don't want to. But just have a thorough look at that challenge, and then inshallah come back to us.
Okay.
Because I think you'll be quite... I think you'll find
I have a general sense of it, but I know you're wrapping up the conversation, so I don't want to open up the can of worms out of respect.
It's a big subject.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know you probably...
And I want to
I understand.
Explore,
I understand. But I would say that for me, it actually puts to rest as to... Because ultimately people are saying, what's the evidence? Where's the miracle? Where's this silver bullet, right? For me, the inimitability challenge of the Quran...
That's your smoking gun,
I would say it's the silver bullet, golden bullet, platinum bullet, diamond bullet, whatever you want to say, right? And I would say that it's a more objective way of perhaps analysing the claim. That the Quran claims to be a miracle, i.e. outside the capacity of what is humanly possible. And so I think we'll have a look at that claim, inshallah.
Okay,
It was nice to talk to you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.